She thought she had everything under control. She had a lover, a perfect family, and a secret she swore was safe. But everything turned into a nightmare the moment her lover found out she was married and decided to get revenge. My name is Caroline, I'm 34 years old, and I live in San Diego. Married for 13 years. 2 kids. Stable life, calm on the outside. A nice house, a hard-working husband, healthy children. On the surface, everything looked right. But inside, I was empty. Completely empty. I'd been married for 13 years. 13 years of a life that, to anyone looking in, seemed fine. 2 kids, a furnished house, bills paid, routines in place. But on the inside, I was dead. By the 7th year of marriage, everything had shifted. What used to be passion, affection, desire, turned into spreadsheets. Just work, kids, chores, silence. My husband would come home exhausted. I was already drained. We slept side by side, but it felt like separate beds inside the same mattress. Pillow neighbors. The last time we had sex as husband and wife? I honestly can't even remember. And if I do, it was without desire. Just going through the motions. Out of duty. After that, nothing. No kisses, no touch. We had become a functional couple for show. We only talked about what was absolutely necessary. The kids' school, groceries, bills. Everything else died in the silence between us. And the worst part? I accepted that as normal for far too long. Then I joined a gym. Not for looks, for my health, for my sanity. I needed something that was mine. Something to break me out of the rigid routine my body was trapped in. And that's where I met Ryan, one of the trainers. A few years younger, easy smile, direct eyes. Sure, he had the body of someone who lived at the gym, but that's not what got me. It was his way of speaking, his attention. He noticed things my husband hadn't seen in years. At first, it was nothing more than good morning, good afternoon, fixing my posture, suggesting a workout. Then it turned into small talk. Simple stuff. What do you do for work? Do you have kids? What kind of music do you like? I answered everything, except the one thing that mattered. I never mentioned I was married. Never said the word husband. I talked about my kids, about my crazy routine, but left him out completely. And that wasn't an accident. That was a choice. I wanted someone to see me as a woman again. Not a wife, not a mom, not a housekeeper. I hadn't felt like a woman in so long. In the mirror, all I saw was responsibility. But with Ryan, I felt seen, desired, even without him saying it outright. One day during a workout, he said, "You've got a different energy. I like talking to you." My heart raced. Not out of passion, but because it had been so long since anyone saw me as more than a role. In that moment, I realized there was still a part of me alive inside. A week later, he asked for my number. Said he wanted to send me a workout playlist. I hesitated for 2 seconds, but I gave it to him. And right then, I opened the door to what would become the biggest mess of my life. It wasn't him who seduced me. I was the one who allowed it. He didn't invade my marriage. I had already stopped seeing that marriage as something alive. I didn't wear my wedding ring at the gym. I never mentioned my husband. On social media, he didn't even exist. I knew exactly what I was doing. At first, things were light. We traded messages about music, workouts, food. Then the voice notes started getting longer. Then came the emojis. Then the compliments. He'd say he loved my laugh, that my voice was calming, that I was beautiful. And I replied like I was 17 again, not 34. Smiling at my phone, waiting for his texts, waking up with excitement. Something my marriage hadn't given me in years. One afternoon he wrote, "We should go out sometime. Just coffee, nothing big." I took a while to answer. Not because I was afraid of cheating, but because I was afraid of admitting to myself that I was already cheating. By that point, I was out of my marriage, at least in my head. I answered yes. That coffee would be nice. And from that moment on, there was no turning back. Coffee turned into a motel. Not on the same day, but in the same logical sequence of 2 people who know exactly what they're doing. He set up the coffee on a Tuesday. A quiet, out-of-the-way spot. I went. Got ready like I hadn't in years. Makeup, hair, perfume. Left the house saying I had work errands to run. He was waiting in his car. Tight shirt, strong cologne, confident smile. I got in. We drove off. There was no coffee, no excuses. We stopped at a simple motel on the north side of town. He knew the way. I walked in without shaking. It wasn't impulse. It was a decision. Right there, I buried whatever scraps were left of my marriage. The room was small, dim light, mirror on the ceiling. He looked at me like I was a prize. I didn't say a word, just took my clothes off. There was no sentimental talk, just bodies, skin, urgency. A kind of urgency my body had long forgotten. We did what two adults do when they give in without thinking about what comes after. And when it was over, guilt didn't show up, just a strange silence. But not regret. I dressed quickly. He asked if I was okay. I said yes. I just wanted to go home. He respected that, dropped me off a few streets away from my place. I walked in and slipped right back into my housewife life. Had dinner with my kids, folded laundry, smiled on autopilot. My husband didn't notice a thing. Or maybe he did and just pretended not to. In the days that followed, the messages came more often. Ryan started calling me mine. Said I'd gotten under his skin, that he wanted to see me again. I didn't respond with the same intensity. I kept it cold, objective, because I knew the more he got attached, the more dangerous this would all become. And still, I kept going. We met up again, and again. Other motels. He'd call me in the middle of the night, and I'd answer from the bathroom. We traded pictures, voice notes, secrets. I started lying more easily, making up meetings, deadlines, trips, all just to protect the parallel life no one suspected I was living. Ryan started wanting more. He wanted to see me outside motels, in public places. I always refused. He'd ask, "What are you hiding from me?" And I'd dodge it, change the subject. Until one day he texted straight, "Are you married?" I took a long breath before answering. I typed, "Yes." And that doesn't change anything. But it did. It changed everything. The next day he disappeared. No replies, no shows at the gym. I felt restless, exposed. I didn't know if he'd tell someone, if he'd come to my house. My head started making up 1,000 scenarios. I tried to act normal, but inside the fear tightened. 2 days later, he came back. He messaged me on WhatsApp with a short line. "You lied to me. Then, you put me in a shitty spot. And then, we need to talk, face to face." I asked him to calm down. Told him it wasn't simple, that I hadn't promised anything. He snapped back, "You used me." He wasn't wrong. But I didn't feel wrong either. I didn't force anything. He came to me. Still, now he wanted an honesty he'd never demanded before. We met again. This time in a dark parking lot near the campus. Inside the car, he stared at me angry. He didn't say anything for a few minutes. Then he asked, "Does your husband know?" I laughed. "Of course not." He went quiet. Said he felt like trash. That he'd fallen for a married woman. That he'd actually gotten attached. I didn't know what to say. I didn't feel the same. It felt good to be with him. That was it. No plans. I wasn't going to leave everything. It wasn't love. I was blunt. "If it's getting heavy for you, we stop." He answered right away. "I don't want to stop, but I won't live in the shadows anymore." Right then, I felt what was coming. When a lover starts demanding space, exposure usually follows. And it did. Not the same day, but a few days later, when he sent a message that froze me. "If you don't tell your husband, I will." When Ryan said he'd tell my husband if I didn't, something inside me flipped. It wasn't just fear, it was clarity, like waking up from a trance. I realized in a brutal second how deep the mess I'd made really was. Up until then, it had felt like a controlled game. I lied, I manipulated schedules, I made excuses. I thought I was in charge, that if I chose to stop, it would all end. But it's never that simple. Never. I froze. His words hammered in my head all day. "If you don't tell him, I will." And I kept asking myself, why would he do that? Was he angry? Did he want to ruin me? Or did he think that by pressuring me, he'd make me leave everything for him? None of those answers calmed me. I thought about ending it, blocking him, disappearing. But I knew it wouldn't be that easy. Ryan was smarter than I'd thought, and I'd already gone too far to expect to come out unscathed. That was the point when I started seeing my husband differently. I looked at him at home and saw a man who had never cheated on me, who was always there for our kids, who split the bills, who never once raised his voice at me, a man who trusted me, who gave me freedom, who respected me. And in that brutal contrast, I realized I was the problem, the guilty one, the selfish one. But realizing the mistake doesn't erase what you've done. And worse, it doesn't protect you from the consequences. I had no idea what Ryan was going to do. My biggest mistake was underestimating what he had already been doing for a while. Without me knowing, he had started recording our meetups. At the motels, he'd position his phone in strategic spots. In the car, he recorded our conversations. Sometimes he'd even ask me to repeat a phrase. I thought he was joking. He was collecting evidence. The voice notes, he saved them all. The texts, the screenshots, the emojis. He had a full archive of our entire affair, and I only found out when it was way too late. One Sunday afternoon, he sent me a different kind of message. Not a demand, not an invite, just a link. A video. I opened it. It was me, lying down, naked, with him, in one of the motels we used to go to. The angle was from above. The camera had been set up beforehand. I had no idea. And right there, watching my own body exposed, I felt the floor disappear under me. Right after, he sent another message. This is just a warning. It's in your hands. I understood immediately. This was blackmail. It didn't matter what he'd said before. It didn't matter if he claimed he was in love. He was pressuring me. He knew I had way more to lose than he did. I tried to stay calm. What do you want? I typed. He replied, You know, I want you for me. No more hiding, no more lying. That was it. He wanted me to give it all up. My husband, my kids, my home, my entire life, to live in a relationship that started broken, stayed rotten, and was now turning into a weapon. Over the next days, he sent more videos, more recordings, audio clips of me saying I wanted him, of me admitting my marriage was dead, of me making stupid promises I never meant to keep. Everything could be used against me, and he knew it. I panicked. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I couldn't look at my husband without imagining him watching all of it. I thought about my kids finding out, my family, the scandal, the shame, but at the same time I felt rage. Yes, I had messed up, but what Ryan was doing was filthy, twisted, calculated. I didn't know anymore if he had planned this from the very start, if he was just a manipulator, a sick guy, or if he simply lost control once he felt rejected. I thought about going to the police, but how? I'd have to tell them everything. I'd be exposing myself completely. My marriage would be over right there. I thought about telling my husband before Ryan did. But how do you confess something like that without destroying him? Without destroying your kids? I felt cornered, trapped, with no way out. And in that state of mind, I started bracing for the worst, because I knew this wasn't going to stop there. Ryan was going to take the next step, and I still believed I could stop it. I still thought I could control the damage, but he was already one step ahead. After that, nothing was the same. Ryan had me against the wall. And worse, he had proof. Videos, audio clips, texts. I was screwed, and I knew it. There was nothing left to hide. He could destroy everything with a single click. My marriage, my reputation, my life. I spent hours staring at my phone. Every notification made me freeze. I could barely breathe. I tried calling him. He didn't answer. Later, he just sent a short voice note. You've got until Friday. I heard that line and knew it wasn't a bluff. He meant it. Either I left everything for him, or he'd blow up my life. That week, I turned into a zombie at home. My husband kept asking if I was sick, if something was wrong. I lied, said it was work, but inside my head it was only panic, rage, shame. I asked myself 1,000 times how I'd ended up there, And the answer was simple: neglect. I neglected my conscience, my limits, my responsibility, all for ego, for loneliness, for sheer stupidity. I tried talking to Ryan, went to the gym, waited for him to come out. When he saw me, he smiled like nothing was happening. We went to his car. Inside, he went straight at me. "You think you're gonna keep up this charade? Playing perfect wife while sneaking around with me? Forget it. Either you leave everything and come to me, or your husband finds out in the dirtiest way possible." I tried to keep calm, told him he was crossing the line, that what he was doing was a crime. He laughed. The crime was what we did together. The difference is, I've got proof, and you've got nothing. I saw it in his eyes. This wasn't about feelings anymore. It was about possession, about control. He didn't truly want me. He wanted to win, to break me, to see how far I'd go before I snapped. And I knew, if I didn't act, he would go through with it. I left shaking, my mind racing. Do I confess to my husband? Risk losing everything but at least say it in my words? Or wait and pray Ryan doesn't actually have the guts? The problem is, guys like him always have the guts. On Thursday, one day before his deadline, he sent another video. Me with him at the motel. Impossible to deny. The caption was short, "Last chance." And below it, a screenshot of an email, addressed to my husband. Subject line: "You need to see this." I broke down completely. I called him, begged, pleaded, cried. His reply was cold. "Either you leave him right now and move in with me, or the email goes out. It's already written." That crushed me. I sank to the bathroom floor and sobbed harder than I ever had in my life. The kind of crying that comes from your soul. Because at that moment, there was no clean way out. Every choice would hurt. Every road would destroy someone. And I knew that in the end, the one most destroyed would be me. I tried to picture how my husband would react. A good man. A present father. Hardworking. He had never cheated. Always stood by me. And me? Doing this to him. How could I ever look him in the eye again? How could I face my kids? But I also knew that if Ryan followed through, he wouldn't stop there. He'd expose everything. He'd make sure to play the victim. He'd paint himself as the heartbroken guy who was used. And me? I'd be the adulteress. The manipulator. The fake. That night, I slept with my phone in my hand. I woke up every hour. Checked my husband's email. Nothing yet. But I could feel it was coming. Friday morning, Ryan sent me one last message. "You've got until noon." And I knew he meant it. I thought I had bought myself a day. When Ryan sent that email screenshot, I managed to log into my husband's account before he got home. First thing I did was delete it. Emptied the trash folder. Logged out. I told myself, maybe now he'll give up. But that was only the beginning. Ryan waited until Saturday. He saw no reaction. No fallout. No signs that the scandal had blown up. That's when he switched to another plan. The following Monday, he went straight to my husband's office. I only found out later. He stood outside waiting. Waited until my husband came out for lunch alone. And when he did, Ryan walked up to him like he had something serious to say. Something about me. And that's when he spilled everything. Videos, screenshots, audio clips. My husband didn't say a word. Just stood there, silent. He thanked him, turned around, and got in his car. Ryan told me later, he didn't yell, didn't fight, didn't make a scene. He just left. And me? I didn't know a thing. My husband came home at his usual time, kissed me on the forehead like always, played with the kids, asked about my day. I swear with everything in me, I had no idea he knew. He didn't show a single sign. None. Saturday rolled around and everything still looked normal. Lunch at home, TV in the afternoon, dinner with the kids. Not a single clue anything was wrong. But Sunday, the atmosphere shifted. He woke up early, set the table with extra seats, made a big breakfast, texted my mom, his dad, our sisters, said he wanted to get the whole family together. I thought it was odd, but he just said, "I've been wanting to talk to everyone. It's been a while." And I believed him. By 11 a.m., the house was full. My parents, his parents, brothers, sisters, in-laws, nieces, nephews, the kids, everyone, and me, sitting there, completely clueless. After breakfast, he asked everyone to be quiet. I need to say something. It's serious. The room froze. He picked up his phone, connected it to the living room TV, opened a folder, and said, "This is what Caroline's been doing behind my back." And he hit play. The first video started, me in a motel with Ryan. The image was crystal clear. The room went dead silent. It felt like time had stopped. Then came the audio. Me saying I wanted to keep going, that I loved being with Ryan, that my marriage was a sham. My dad lowered his head. My mom started crying. His dad stared at the TV with no expression. One of my sisters sat frozen in shock. And my kids? They were there. I jumped from my chair, screamed, "Stop it! They're here!" I tried to shut it off. He pushed me back. The scene was horrific. Not just because of the videos, but because of the humiliation, the shame, the pain in every face around me. My oldest son broke down crying. The little one, too young to fully understand, just stared at me with scared eyes. My parents didn't try to comfort me, because I was raised like this. If you do right, they'll stand by you. But if you screw up, you face it alone. When it ended, he delivered the final blow. This is the woman I spent 13 years with, the mother of my kids, the perfect wife. Congratulations, Caroline. Now everyone knows. He grabbed his keys, said he was leaving the house, that he'd be getting a lawyer, that he'd fight for custody, that he'd pay child support, but that he'd never look me in the eye again. I stayed there, in the middle of the room, everyone staring at me. No one said a word. They didn't have to. After that Sunday morning, nothing ever went back to normal. Nothing. That so-called family breakfast turned into a courtroom. Everyone sided with him. No one cared what I felt, why I'd done it, what led me there. For them, what they'd seen on the TV was enough to crucify me. My mom cried without saying a word. My dad looked at me once with disgust, like I'd committed an unforgivable crime. My sisters stared at me with pure contempt. But nothing, absolutely nothing, hurt more than the look on my children's faces. My oldest, 12 years old, stood up as soon as the video ended and said, "I want to live with Dad." "You're worthless." Then he walked out of the room. The youngest, 7, just stood frozen, confused. He didn't understand everything, but he felt it. I tried to reach him, hugged him. He didn't resist, but he didn't hug me back either. The oldest locked himself in his room. That same night, my husband left. He took our oldest with him, said he was filing for divorce and joint custody, told me I could keep the youngest for now until the court made a decision. He didn't yell. He didn't fight. He just erased me from his life. The legal process moved fast. He was prepared. He brought the videos, the screenshots, the audio files. His lawyer put together a dossier. He destroyed me on paper the same way he'd destroyed me in front of the family. I didn't fight back. I couldn't. Everything he showed was true. My oldest son told the judge he wanted to live with his dad. He spoke firmly. "She cheated on my dad. I don't trust her anymore." Those words came out of a child's mouth. The courts didn't punish me beyond the legal outcome, but everyone around me did. The social sentence was far worse. My mother started treating me like a burden. She'd call asking about the kids, but she stopped asking about me. My father, he stopped speaking to me at all. Not even good morning. If we ran into each other, he turned his face away. He treated me like I was dead. My sisters changed. They used to be my confidants. Now they looked at me like I was capable of the worst. They never left their kids alone with me again. They never invited me anywhere. If I showed up at a family lunch, I was a ghost, sitting there, listening, but never included. Even neighbors in my building started avoiding me. Some already knew the story. When a betrayed man decides to air everything in public, gossip spreads fast. And me? I sank. I stopped getting dressed up, stopped going to the gym, gave up everything that once made me feel alive. Nothing made sense anymore. My home turned into a battlefield. My younger son started asking about his brother every day. And when he saw his father, he came back quiet, saying nothing about what he'd heard or what had been said. But I knew. Ryan? He disappeared, vanished. He never spoke to me again after that Sunday. After destroying my life, he simply evaporated. He stopped answering calls, blocked me everywhere, gave no explanation. Maybe that was for the best. I started living under the weight of guilt and trying not to lose my mind. Because even though I know I messed up, badly, he didn't need to drag my kids into it the way he did. He didn't have to expose me as a monster in front of them. He punished me with the thing I loved most. My oldest son won't talk to me. Not a call. Not a message. My ex won't allow contact outside the court-ordered visits. And even on the days set for visitation, the boy prefers to stay at his dad's house. It's been more than 2 years since it all happened. 2 years that feel like 20. Every day feels like waking up in the same punishment. My oldest never spoke to me again. Nothing. Not a text, not a call. At first I tried, sent messages. He read some, didn't open others, never replied. Then one day he sent one line, "Stop trying, I don't want you anymore." That killed whatever hope was left inside me. Today my son is 15, a teenager, almost a grown man, and I've lost him. Because of me, I know, but also because of the way everything was exposed. Nothing justifies dragging kids into it like that. My mistake didn't have to become a public show, but it did. And once people watch, they never forget. My youngest, the one who stayed with me, started changing too. He used to be close. Over time, he's gone quiet, talks less, spends more time in his room. I tried to move on, tried to rebuild. Got a new job, rented a small apartment just for me and the youngest. Started therapy. Did everything I could to climb out of the hole. And for a while, I thought I was making progress. A few months ago, I met a man. Different. Attentive. Respectful. He listened. Treated me well. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Valued. Believed in. He didn't know my past, so in the beginning, things felt light. Natural. But like everything else in my life now, it only took one spark to make it crumble. A mutual acquaintance told him how my marriage had ended. They told him about the video, about the affair, and of course he wanted to know if it was true. I didn't lie. I told him. I told him about the cheating, the exposure, the loss of my kids. He sat in silence, listened to everything, and at the end he just said, "I'm sorry, but I can't." And then he disappeared. Once again I was left behind, as if my mistake defined me, as if there was nothing else in me worth keeping. And maybe there isn't, at least not for them. I thought nothing else could hurt me, that after losing my marriage, my kids' trust, and my dignity in front of my family, there was nothing left to destroy. But I was wrong. It happened on an ordinary afternoon. I was at home washing dishes when the phone rang. It was my ex-husband. He was yelling, out of control. "Do you know what happened with our son?" "What are you talking about?" I asked, terrified. He came home from school in tears, said some kids showed him a video, an intimate video of you, on a porn site. Do you realize what that did to him? I froze. Couldn't breathe. My head started spinning. I couldn't even answer right away. They mocked him in front of everyone, called him names, the kids in shock. What kind of mother does this? I had no words, but inside I already knew who was behind it. Ryan, the man I had the affair with, the one who recorded us, the one who blackmailed me years ago, the one who said he'd do whatever it took. And now, years later, he had kept his promise. After I hung up, I went straight to my computer, searched, dug around, and there it was. An old video of me, intimate, uploaded to an adult site. Clickbait title, disgusting comments, thousands of views. I wanted to delete it, but it was too late. The damage was already done. My heart collapsed. My son, who hadn't been speaking to me, was now being humiliated at school for something he had absolutely no part in. In that moment, shame turned into anger. I had to act. I went to the police, took everything I had, told them about the affair, the old threats, my suspicion that he'd done it. Handed over the link to the video. The officer was matter of fact. She told me to file a police report for invasion of privacy and distribution of intimate content without consent. Ryan hadn't just wrecked my private life. Now he was messing with my children. And I wasn't going to let that slide. Filing the report was just the beginning. Once I pressed charges, an investigation opened. The detectives explained it wouldn't be quick. Identifying who posted the video would require a court order, IP tracking, and cooperation from the hosting platform. It all takes time. And in that time, I kept getting pointed at, judged, talked about. At first, I couldn't leave the house. I had panic attacks, stopped eating. I became obsessed with checking the site, praying the video would be taken down. I reported it to the platform, requested removal for violating my rights. Days later, it disappeared. But the damage had already been done. My kids were different. The youngest stopped opening up. The oldest, my ex said, started therapy but stayed angry. He told me he never wanted to see me again. I accepted it, but it still hurt. A kind of pain that's impossible to explain. The legal process went on. I got help from a public defender who helped formalize the claims and filed for damages for emotional distress. We also pushed for criminal accountability for non-consensual distribution of intimate material. Over time, the police tied the email used to send the video to an IP address linked to Ryan. It wasn't absolute proof, but it was a start. The detective said they would subpoena him to testify. I learned through others that he'd moved, working in another city, in another state. No one knew exactly where he was living. Still, the investigation didn't stop. The police filed a location request, and the case was sent to the district attorney's office. Through all of that, I tried to live, but it was living with fear. Every time I left the house, I felt exposed. Every time my phone rang, I braced for bad news. I had trouble sleeping, trouble trusting people. Today, I'm alone, living in a modest place. My youngest still lives with me, but he's distant. My oldest is gone from my life. My ex-husband hasn't spoken to me since. My sisters still avoid me. My father still can't look me in the eye. The only thing that still keeps me standing is the hope that one day, even if late, the truth will be seen, that justice will be done, that my kids will grow up and understand. Yes, I messed up, but I was also destroyed in a cruel way. If you've listened all the way through, know this. Don't hide secrets that can turn into weapons, and never underestimate how destructive a single mistake can be. That was the price I paid, and I'm still paying it. Reflection on the story. This story isn't about heroes and villains. It's about bad choices, devastating consequences, and the harsh reality that sometimes there's no going back. Caroline made a mistake, and she knows it. But her mistake turned into ammunition in the hands of someone who chose revenge as his weapon. What started as an affair became a silent war, and the ones who got hurt the most were the children, the family ties, and what was left of her dignity. Society judges selectively. A woman's slip-up becomes a permanent scar. When punishment spills over onto the kids, the public image, and the emotional core in such a brutal way, that's not justice. That's public shaming. Ryan didn't just cross ethical lines, he committed a crime. The silence and shame that followed show how hard it still is for women to report this kind of digital abuse, especially when they're already broken inside. This story is a warning, not just about infidelity, but about the risks of underestimating how far someone else might go, about the need to hold people accountable when they weaponize intimacy for revenge, about how public exposure can ruin lives, not only the person involved, but everyone around them. And above all, it's about the importance of thinking before acting, because some mistakes can't be fixed, and some consequences stay with you for life.